Vic Damone will now do a tapered faux hawk. Vic Damone will first start off by spraying his client down using water. Combing his hair forward, he will begin to grab sections, using that as his guideline. Vic Damone will start off in the center section, using that as his initial guideline. Vic Damone will now use his wall rapid fire and his number 2 detachable blade to cut in this area. Vic Damone will make sure he goes in an up and down stroke motion, always making sure his blade is flat on the client's head, cutting at a 90-degree angle in an upward motion. It's always important to pull the ear down when working right above the ear area. Now using his 3.5 guard, he will continue cutting right above where he just left off when using the number 2 detachable blade. He will continue in an up and down stroke motion, making sure he does not go into the contour of the client's head shape. Now using just the corner of the blade at a 45-degree angle, Vic will continue to cut and making sure he blends in his initial guideline with the 3.5 detachable blade. Vic will now use his 3 3/4 detachable blade and cut in this section. Again, staying consistent and going an up and down stroke motion at a 90-degree angle. Vic will now comb the client's hair straight down and create a shorter guideline using the center section of the client's head. He will now cut the back area at a 45 to help blend the back to the top of his hair. Vic will now use his wall Sterling Reflections with the closed lever and do his clipper over comb technique to blend the sides in with the top of his haircut. Notice how he's cutting at a 45-degree angle and making sure everything blends right in. He will continue this all around the head. Now he will use his clippers to continue trimming the sides with the top. Always making sure, going from the sides to the top, it's at a 45-degree angle. Vic will now use his thinning shears to help thin out some of the bulk and give it a smooth, feathered look on the sides. Using his anise edgers, he will begin to shape up the back neckline. Vic will now use his wall Sterling Reflections with the open lever to begin his taper. He will begin his taper 1/4 of an inch underneath the occipital bone, making sure from one side to the other side it's consistent and he's leaving himself what we call a soft guideline. Now using his one guard with the open lever, he will cut about an inch above where he just left his initial guideline, coming right up to the occipital bone. He will now close his lever all the way and work right in between the 1/2 and the 1 1/2. He will also use the corner of his blade to help blend in the 1/2 to the 1 1/2 by only using the one guard closed lever. Vic will now use his 1 1/2 guard by wall with the closed lever to continue blending right above what he did when using the one guard open lever. Vic will now close his lever all the way and begin to start blending the back nape area of the taper. Starting off with the closed lever, he'll go up about 1/4 of an inch from the natural hair growth, and now open up his lever about 1/4 of an inch and continue blending right above what he just did. Vic will now open up his lever all the way and continue blending out the line he just created when just using the blade open lever at 1/4. Vic will now use his Andis edgers to edge up the front hairline. You always want to make sure your clippers do all the work for you. Press gently and swipe. It's also important to stretch out the skin and making sure you're only cutting what you need to cut. And you do not want to take the client's forehead or edges any farther back than its natural hair growth. When arching out the sideburns, it's real important to use the corner of the actual blade to detail the curve. Vic will now taper off the sides by using his wall starting reflections, starting with a closed lever, going about 1/4 of an inch right above the beginning of the sideburn. He will now open up his lever and go up about 1/4 of an inch above where he just started his initial guideline, using only the corner of his blade. He will continue cutting at a 45-degree angle. Now using his number one guard, closed lever, he will continue blending right above what he just did with the 1/2. Now he will open up his lever and go about 1/4 of an inch above what he just did with the number one guard. Staying consistent, cutting at a 45-degree angle, just using the corner of his blade. He will now use his 1/2 guard using a closed lever and blend right in between the 1/2 and the one guard. Vic will now do all the same steps on the other side. Using his Andis edges, he'll clean up right underneath his initial guideline. Now using his Pacino signature razor, he will stretch out the skin and shape up the arch of the sideburn, connecting to the temple peak point. When using the straight edge razor, it's very important to stretch out the skin and give smooth, consistent strokes. Always using your razor at a 45-degree angle. He will now place some gel in the client's hair to help style the faux hawk. He will now go over it freehand using his shears to help create the faux hawk look. And now for your final look, a tapered faux hawk by Vic Damone.